Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating and pretty unusual journey. Instead of diving into a market or, a new policy, we are going to apply some really high-caliber intellectual tools
Right. The rigorous, skeptical standards of academic philosophy.
and apply them directly to a legal case.
We're basically bringing in the logic police. I mean, this deep dive is all about what happens when the legal system uses language that's just conceptually vague.
And how a philosophical critique can just expose the fundamental flaws.
Exactly, the structural flaws in the reasoning. Our mission here isn't to judge the politics of it, but to really ruthlessly analyze whether the intellectual structure of the argument actually holds water.
The subject of this analysis is the case of Chen Jingwan. He's an independent scholar, holds a PhD in physics.
And he was convicted of seeking trouble and provoking disorder, or Sungsin Zishi.
For actions he took online between 2019 and 2022.
Yeah, and the charge, as we saw in the court documents, was specific. It was that he used online tools to repost and spread content that was deemed false information,
And that in doing so, he caused serious chaos in public order.
which resulted in a sentence of 1 year and 8 months.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to unpack the scholar's really multi-layered defense.
It's a defense built not just on, standard legal procedure.
It's this incredible academic counteroffensive. He's using concepts from formal logic, complex systems theory.
And philosophy of language. He essentially turned his own academic background into his shield.
Exactly. This is where the defense fought a war on two fronts, right? Challenging the meaning of the words and the structure of the court's arguments.
Okay, let's unpack this journey into conceptual rigor.
So to begin, we have to understand the basic structure of the prosecution's case. For this specific crime to stick, the charge needed the prosecution to prove three essential requirements. Where did they immediately run into trouble?
Well, the whole case rests on a kind of tripod of proof. First, they needed the objective act, the actus reus.
Meaning, did he actually do the thing?
Right. Did he spread content that was deemed false information or that insulted the state? That's the physical action.
Okay.
Second, they needed subjective intent, the mens rea.
The mental state.
Did the defendant actually know the information was false when he spread it? In the court's language, this is Mingzi to know clearly.
And what's the third leg of that tripod?
The third is the objective consequence. The act has to result in what the law requires, which in this case was causing serious chaos in public order.
And all three have to be proven.
All three. If one leg is missing, the whole thing falls over.
And this is where the philosophical alarm bells started ringing right away for me. When they tried to prove that second element, the subjective intent, the court used the defendant's own education against him.
It's really something.
They explicitly said that because he possesses a high level of education and knowledge, he should be able to distinguish right from wrong.
And therefore, he must have known the information was false.
That's the leap.
It's a fascinating and, from a logical standpoint, an incredibly dangerous move. The court is using his status, his PhD, as a stand-in for actual proof of criminal intent.
It just skips the part where you have to prove what was in his head.
Right. It asserts what should have been in his mind based on his identity. And the defense, quite rightly, seized on this. They argued all three core elements, act, intent, and consequence, were missing or just improperly constructed.
So before we get into the defense's arguments,
Yeah.
we need to equip you, the listener, with the tools he used. We're sort of defining the rules of the logic police here.
Yeah.
What exactly is this tradition, analytic philosophy, and why was it the right choice here?
So analytic philosophy, it originated mostly in the early 20th century. And it's not really a single school of thought. It's more of a methodology,
A way of doing things.
a way of doing things. It's a relentless commitment to clarity. The core belief is that a lot of conflicts, in science, law, life, they don't arise from these huge intractable problems.
They come from what? Just linguistic confusion.
Linguistic confusion and logical sloppiness.
Exactly.
It sounds less like coming up with grand theories and more like getting out the conceptual sandpaper.
That's a great way to put it. It's about rigor and precision. And this tradition gives us four critical tools for this case. The first one he grabbed was, let's call it, the conceptual analysis wrench.
Okay. Conceptual analysis. What does that look like in action?
It's the core work of defining a concept's meaning, right?
Sure.
And the necessary conditions for it to apply. Think of it like a chemist analyzing what a substance is actually made of.
It's elemental components.
Precisely. Before you can argue if something is chaos or false information, you have to define what those words mean and what conditions have to be met for them to be legally applicable.
If the concept itself is shaky, the whole law is unstable.
The whole law built on it is unstable.
And the next tool lets us check that stability, which is logical analysis.
Right. Logical analysis uses formal logic-like propositional and predicate calculus to strip away all the rhetoric and just translate arguments into these precise skeletal logical forms. And the goal there is to check the argument's validity.
Yes. And validity, just to be clear for everyone, is totally distinct from truth.
Right.
Crucial distinction. Validity just means if your starting premises are true, does the conclusion have to follow logically? We're not even checking if the court's premises are factually true yet.
You're just checking the structural integrity.
Is the roof supported by the walls? It's like a structural engineer checking the framework of a building. If it's invalid, it collapses. Doesn't matter if the premises are facts or fantasies.
Then we shift gears a little for the third tool, language analysis. This one focuses on how language actually works in the real world.
Yeah, and this brings us into the world of Wittgenstein. The key idea here is that meaning is use.
Okay, meaning is use.
So words don't have these fixed meanings floating out there somewhere. Their meaning is determined by the specific social context or the language game they're used in.
So if you say checkmate, it only means something in the language game of chess.
Exactly, not by some general dictionary definition. So understanding the context, the specific language game, is vital to understanding the meaning the court was trying to impose.
It's like a carpenter inspecting their tools.
Yes, you have to understand the function of the word in that specific context before you can judge its purpose or, its misuse.
And finally, the last tool, argument reconstruction. This one really shows intellectual rigor even when you're fighting the state.
It's the ethical core of academic critique. It requires you to restate your opponent's case in its strongest, clearest, most charitable form before you critique it.
So you're not attacking a straw man.
You're trying to refute the argument, not caricature the arguer. It's like a doctor performing a complete diagnosis before they prescribe anything. You have to understand the disease fully first.
Now we have the toolkit. Let's start applying it. Let's start with flaw A. The confusion baked into this idea of false information.
Right. So the defense systematically categorized all the content Chen Jingyuan reposted. They put it into 4 types to show that they just couldn't meet the legal standard of rumor.
Okay, what were they?
So 1 was art and aesthetics, like a satirical comic. 2 was subjective emotional expression, a picture, a poem. 3, rational opinion or theory, so complex political critiques. And 4, objective descriptions, verifiable historical facts.
And the conceptual analysis critique here is so sharp because it asks that most basic philosophical question. What has a truth value?
Exactly. For a statement to be legally called false information, it has to possess what philosophers call a truth value. It has to be a proposition that can be proven true or false.
In art, emotion, and political opinion.
They logically do not possess truth values.
You can't say a poem is false in the same way you can say the sky is green is false.
Correct. A satirical drawing or a political opinion, it can be offensive, it can be poorly supported, maybe it's bad art, but it cannot logically be false information. To call those things rumors is what philosophers call a category mistake.
A category mistake.
You're using a concept outside the domain where it can logically apply. It's like asking what color the number 7 is.
That's devastating for the prosecution's Objective Act requirement. If the content can't be factually false, the whole crime collapses.
The whole premise falls apart.
But the core tension is still on flaw B, the high education logical fallacy, the court's argument about his subjective intent.
This is where we bring in that logical analysis tool. We strip the court's argument down to its skeleton.
Premise 1.
Premise 1, Chen Jingyuan has a high education. Premise 2, people with high education should know right from wrong. Conclusion, therefore he knew the information was false.
It sounds plausible on the surface, which is what makes it so insidious.
But it is a textbook logical failure. It's a non sequitur. The conclusion just does not follow from the premises.
How so?
Well, think of it this way. I might have the capacity to perform brain surgery because I went to medical school, but that does not mean that right now I know the precise location of a specific tumor in a specific patient's brain.
I see. So having the general capacity for discernment, the PhD is being substituted for the specific, demonstrable cognitive state required for the crime.
The actual knowledge that this one specific post was definitively false It's an illegal substitution.
The court is just presuming guilt based on his identity.
His identity and status, rather than requiring factual proof of intent, it violates the most basic requirement of proving mens rea. The court's logic transforms his education from a neutral fact into a signpost for inherent criminality.
If we zoom out, this failure seems less like just an accident and more like a deliberate misuse of language as a tool of power.
Now you're getting into the philosophy of language implications. We're stepping into the realm of semantic tyranny.
Meaning occupation.
Exactly. The defense argues that the language of the court violently shifted the context of the words. Chen Jingwen's content belonged in the academic discussion language game.
Where meaning is fluid, skeptical, open to critique.
Right. But the judicial system didn't engage in that discussion, did it?
No, it just imposed a verdict.
It stripped the content of its context, forcing the academic language into the crime and punishment language game. And in that game, the judicial system fixes the meaning of false and disorderly to serve a political outcome, not based on rigor or evidence.
So if language is action, as the Speech Act theorists say, what does that make the court's declaration of guilty?
We can look at J.L. Austin's work here. Speaking is often doing. When a judge says, "I sentence you," that's a performative act. It creates a reality.
And the court's utterance, guilty of causing serious chaos, should be a description of a fact that has occurred.
It should be a description, but when there is no verifiable evidence of chaos, no riots, no panic, the declaration doesn't describe a fact.
It creates the supposed fact.
Correct. The declaration becomes the reality. And when that performative act is based on a subjective presumption, the high education fallacy, and it lacks the necessary evidence to be valid, Austin calls it an infelicitous act. It's a performative failure.
So the legal language is twisted.
It's twisted from a tool of rational description into what the defense called a curse, a form of sanctioned speech violence that just tries to fix reality by declaration, not by evidence.
That's a powerful indictment. Let's turn to the third element, the objective consequence, causing serious chaos. What was the defense's big argument here, since the prosecution offered basically no evidence of unrest?
This is, for me, the most unique part of the defense. It's where Chen Jingyuan turned his high education, the very thing used to condemn him, into an irrefutable professional asset.
He launched a scientific counteroffensive.
Yes, against the concept of harm itself, drawing directly from his own field of physics.
How does nonlinear complex systems theory apply to reposting things online? That seems like a huge leap.
It's the difference between linear legalistic thinking and complex network thinking. The legal system assumes a simple cause and effect. Action A leads to chaos B.
A leads to B.
But Chen Jingwan, citing theories like self-organized criticality, or SOC, argued that the network, the social media environment, is a robust, scale-free, complex system.
Okay, can you break down scale-free complex system for us?
Sure. Think of the internet. It's not like a chain of dominoes where every piece is equally important. It has hubs, these massively connected nodes like major state media or huge celebrities, and then it has edge nodes.
Accounts like his, with minimal followers and low engagement.
Exactly. His defense was that his actions were limited to that low connectivity edge node. He argued his reposting was a microact.
And the system can handle that.
He asserted that a robust, complex system, which is built to withstand constant small shocks, could not scientifically be pushed into systemic, catastrophic collapse by a microact from the periphery. The system is designed to just absorb those events.
So he used physics to argue that the required consequence was scientifically impossible.
Which eliminates the charge entirely. He argued that he not only did not know the information was false, he knew it was harmless Mingzi Qiwuhai.
So that eliminates the subjective intent to cause harm.
Completely. Because his professional knowledge dictated that the network would just ignore or absorb the action.
That is the ultimate aha moment of this whole thing.
Yeah.
He turned the prosecution's premise that his high education made him guilty completely on its head.
And used that same knowledge to prove the consequence was an intellectual fantasy. And he had the final piece of evidence, what he called the empirical proof.
The natural experiment.
His post-conviction observation. Despite the court claiming his posts caused serious chaos, he noted that the supposedly devastating content was still online, completely unattended, unshared, and undiscussed.
The ultimate proof of harmlessness was that nobody cared.
Precisely. The alleged serious chaos was proven empirically to be an imaginary legal construct. The reality of those quiet, ignored posts directly violated the bedrock principle of evidence-based judgment.
The entire case, when you filter it through this, aggressive logical analysis, it just exposes these systematic failures. vague language, invalid arguments, and the total blurring of opinion, art, and verifiable facts.
At the end of the day, his struggle was a refusal to let the state impose a single, rigid, and ultimately illogical meaning onto concepts like false information and chaos. He was arguing for the right of complexity and skepticism to exist.
Free from the violent context shifting of the judicial system.
Exactly.
And it challenges every listener to ask, when a judicial system can just bypass the need for evidence of intent by substituting the defendant's educational status, what recourse does reasoned argument truly have?
It raises a really important question for you, the learner, in your own digital life. If we accept that language is not a neutral tool, but is often a field of action and power, how do we use these analytical tools of logical consistency and conceptual clarity to defend that critical line?
The line between a mere opinion and a verifiable fact.
In every online interaction we have.
That distinction, the defense of clarity, is perhaps the most vital takeaway from this case. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the structure of meaning and the crisis of language.